In some circles, realtors are getting a bad rap right now when it comes to the increasing house prices in Canada. Today we're going to look at whether that is deserved or not, and we're starting now. I'm Lisa Salt with RE/MAX Vernon Salt Fowler, and today we're going to look at whether or not realtors are the cause of the housing boom in Canada. But before we do, please make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and like this video as we're posting new videos every single week. On this channel, we give you the straight goods on Vernon and the Okanagan, our ultimate 4 seasons paradise. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, or you're just curious about the area we call home, be sure to call, text, or email us and just add salt. So here's what prompted this video. We had a texting exchange with someone, let's call her Briana. She contacted our brokerage back in March of 2021 asking for information on one of our listings, and we had stayed in touch with her now and again. The follow-up went something like this. One of our realtors followed up to see if Briana needed more help, as she was very, really pleasant in her first exchange, and this is what she comes back with. So if you can work with us, sure, but I'd lose our number because I don't appreciate being called by realtors when we can't afford to be in the market we could once afford. And we said, of course, we understand your frustration, etc. Sure, if you see a house that's under $1 million, call us. If not, we just cannot buy it as you can't get blood from a stone. And then she goes into, you people are to blame for bidding wars and speculation, so I don't have much respect for you as you have directly profited while others are homeless. Real estate agents made it worse, so don't pretend you care. You're in this job to make money. You don't care if Canadians have housing. You only care about money now, so I don't need your sympathy. I bet you hope houses get even more expensive. Don't contact me, you piece of scum. Lose this number, scammer, piece of. You're the issue we have in this country. Well, that was a little harsh. This is what we call a have a nice day exchange. So where you can't win, so you just move on. Thank you, Briana. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And now I realize there's been a lot of frustration in the market right now, and I thought it was worthwhile to make a video looking at exactly that. Are realtors the problem? Did we realtors somehow cause these huge increases in housing prices? So I did my best to look at this impartially to say, okay, do I have a hand in this? And if so, how? So let's look at what causes prices to rise. This doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a commodity on the stock market or a car or a house. What causes prices to rise? And this is when we have to go to our economics graphs and examine one of the basic laws of economics, and that is the law of supply and demand. If you watch or listen to anyone who knows anything about the real estate market, this outlines exactly our problem right now and why prices are increasing so much. And it's because demand is too high and supply is simply too low. There's not enough building for the demand being created. If you look at this economic graph, on the one hand, you have supply, and then on the other, you have demand. Where these two curves intersect is price. So as demand goes up, even if supply stays the same, price would go up. Alternatively, if supply goes down, even if demand stayed the same, price would go up. What we have right now is demand going up and supply going up at the same time, so prices shoot up like we've been experiencing in the last few years in the Okanagan. Until this supply number comes up or the demand number comes down or both, prices will keep going up. That's just the way it works. It's the law of supply and demand. Look it up, Briana. Which leads up to the question posed by this video. Are realtors responsible for the demand increasing or the supply increasing or both? So I did a few simple Google searches to investigate, and I want to share with you what is said impartially online, not by realtors. Let's start by having a look at some of the factors that have come into play in Canada to increase the demand of housing. Why is there so much demand? Reason number 1, low interest rates. It's a huge factor. Low interest rates are used to stimulate the economy, and that is what's happening. Home buyers are stimulated to purchase properties that they otherwise would not or could not afford with higher interest rates, because higher interest rates translate into higher house payments. So buyers' purchasing power has gone up with the low interest rates. Right now you have people who are buying, maybe first-time buyers or move-up buyers who would normally have stayed put or stayed renting. But then with the lower interest rates and the lower house payments, they took that opportunity to buy into the market or sell their first home and buy their second larger home, for example. And this goes further because the second set of buyers that lower rates fuel is investment buyers. Investors have been looking at the low rates and then saying, okay, with these low mortgage payments, this is a good investment. It's a good use of my money. If an investor has some spare money, they may as well invest it in real estate because they can't make any money investing in the bank. Interest rates are just too low. They don't get paid anything. Investing in an interest-bearing anything won't keep up with inflation, so you're in the hole. So investing in real estate has been a good use of investors' money. There are new investors also in the market, those who have looked at the equity in their house and borrowed against their own home to buy a rental property. Again, these people are looking at the numbers. They bought their house for say $400,000, now their house is worth $700,000, so they can take say $150,000 out of their home equity with no problem and finance another house as an investment. Why not? Money's cheap. Canada is the only country in the world that is keeping its interest rates low. All other countries, including the United States, are increasing their interest rates. Second, immigration. According to what I've read, and this graph from Statistics Canada shows, from the 1970s until the 2000s, population growth averaged about 3.1 million per decade. But in the 10 years from 2010 to 2019, population growth surged to 4 million in that decade. Now in 2020 alone, Canada welcomed 174,000 immigrants, which was down because of COVID travel restrictions. But the plan was to welcome 341,000. In 2021, 401,000 permanent residents, which is the highest immigration year on record. And Canada plans for the same 401,000 new permanent residents in 2022 and 2023. These new Canadian permanent residents obviously need housing. Some of these immigrants are quite wealthy as well, and they've come into Canada via the paid immigration program, where people can invest $1.6 million in Canadian bonds and obtain citizenship in Canada. The problem is that local Canadians aren't able to compete with that kind of wealth and are getting displaced as a result. Even the immigrants who are not wealthy are then renting in large numbers, which are indirectly then driving up the prices of real estate and certainly the rental prices. We know how difficult it is to rent something. So the third reason, let's talk about the millennials. Millennials are now buying their first homes. At 9.8 million strong in Canada alone, millennials account for the largest share of Canada's population. So the sheer size is going to dominate Canada's future, just as the baby boomer generation did the past 3 decades. These millennials have been entering home buying age, and because most of them were living at home, saving money, then the pandemic hit and they weren't spending money on travel or going out or anything like that, they were saving for down payments, and many of them were able to be gifted down payments too from their baby boomer parents, who have a large portion of today's wealth. Nearly 48% of Canadians aged 25 to 35 currently own their home, and a quarter of these homeowners purchased a property during the pandemic. So as mortgage rates fell to historically low levels and the competition for entry-level housing lessened, and they had all this money saved up from not spending it on anything else, then some of these millennials saw a window of opportunity and they went for it. Millennials, you have to remember, are also much more comfortable buying online and using online resources than any other generation. So the pandemic probably didn't slow them down very much. A lot of this unspent millennial money has now found its way into real estate. Number 4, that brings us to the pandemic. People have learned they can work from home and they can work remotely, and therefore that is definitely part of the cause of our increased prices in the Okanagan. People are now buying up houses in the Okanagan because now they're working from home and living where they want to, not where they have to. So now let's look at the other part of the equation, the supply portion. As we said, demand is up, way up, and that mostly is the issue. However, there's still some supply issues as well. If we go back to the graph we looked at earlier from StatsCan, we looked at the rise in immigration. However, look at the new single-family house completions, down from 1.3 million to 1.1. Now, why is that? Why are the new housing completions down? 1, COVID affecting the supply chain, and not just COVID. How about the material shortages due to the floods and the landslides that kept construction materials stranded at the Port of Vancouver? So when you can't get the materials and or the cost of materials go sky high, it takes longer, gets more expensive, and therefore gets riskier for a builder to build or a developer to develop. There's also a huge shortage of construction workers to build even if the materials arrive. So COVID and other natural disasters haven't been kind to the construction industry. The second is government red tape. Building is a huge pain in the rear, and it's tough to have the patience to deal with the municipal governments to rezone, to get building permits, and then the cost of those things in Vernon, especially the DCC costs, the development costs, are comparatively huge. And from what I understand, that's in all areas all over the country. So are the realtors to blame for all this, for the supply and the demand? Well, if we recap the demand issues with interest rates, immigration, millennials buying, and the pandemic, I mean, I don't know. Maybe some of the realtors are millennials or investors and they have been buying up some of the houses, or maybe they procreated some millennials and then those millennials bought houses. But I think that's a bit of a stretch. With the shortage of supply, COVID, and the supply chain issues, government red tape, I'm pretty sure realtors didn't cause any of that. Everyone seems to think that this is the best market in the world for realtors, and I'm here to tell you it is not the case. Right now, in our brokerage, we have 22 listings. 22. This time of year, we should be ramping up to 85. And here's what I know. If I don't have any listings to sell, I'm not going to be able to make any money. Believe me, if I could control the market right now, like this person who texted us thought I could, I would hypnotize a bunch of people who own single-family houses in Vernon, and I would convince them to sell. And list with us, of course. That's what I would do. But anyways, the market is extremely tough, and there is an amazing amount of wasted time for buyers as well as realtors. And you have to remember, for every hour that a buyer goes to view a house, and for every offer that a buyer writes and loses, there's a realtor who loses right along with them. That realtor also lost that time showing, lost that time writing the offer, presenting the offer, losing the offer. That buyer didn't get to buy that house, which is totally heart-wrenching. And what no one thinks about is that realtor went home that night without making a sale. And the only way realtors make money is by helping buyers buy and sellers sell. So Briana, back off. Believe me, if I could influence the economic law of supply and demand and therefore pricing of houses, I wouldn't be sitting here making YouTube videos. Be sure to watch our monthly market update videos on the market here in the Okanagan. And Briana, have a nice day.